Indeed, indeed. It's time to get to work here on Article 5 Live, episode number 313. Coming to you live from the radio bunker somewhere in the great state of Arizona. I'm J.D. Smalis, your host, and welcome to Adult Political Commentary. It is August the 23rd, 2026, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. And let's get into it. The headline for tonight is Beyond Trump, because as much fun as it's been for the last 10 years or so, it's more than high time that we look beyond President Trump as to the future of this country, as to the future of future of the Republican Party, future of this nation, future of what sane people hold sacred and dear to them about this country. There seems to be a whole lot of concern about the Democrat Socialists, the DSA as they call it. The DSA goes way, way back. Any of you remember the Weather Underground? Bill Ayers and his disgusting wife blowing up buildings and killing people and getting away with it, and then becoming a renowned professor at Chicago University. Famous Sean Hannity quote, Barack Obama started his political career in Bill Ayers' living room. Which is a true statement. The Weather Underground was basically the terrorist branch of the Democratic Socialists of America. And these idiots that call themselves Democratic Socialists today, with the possible exception of Bernie Sanders, don't know enough history to even know these things that we just said. It's really quite unbelievable when you think about that. But things are so convoluted, and what people don't know about even recent history is so tragic that for the vast majority of the public out there, including a large portion of those who consider themselves informed, they don't know what they're talking about. And I find it, it's almost like for a guy like me who's been paying attention to geopolitics since 1968, it's like being in the Twilight Zone that those people even exist. To me, I mean, I know I'm one of those weirdos that pay attention to history and politics and geopolitics and try to, decipher what it means and try to figure out where we're going with everything. A lot of people have what they consider better things to do with their lives than that, like know every right move to make on their fantasy football and things like that. And I'm not trying to insult people that love fantasy football or anything related to that. I'm just making a point that those are more common priorities than, much more common priorities than what I've always had in my life, and that is to pay attention to what actually directly affects my life and injures my liberty. I choose to be as aware as possible about those sort of things that threaten my liberty, threaten my freedom. Many people take these things for granted. And they have for many, many decades, and they stay unapprised of the threats we all face. And then when they suddenly awake to something like flock cameras, everybody's up in arms. Well, that's just a small cog in the whole surveillance grid machine, but it's blatant enough that it caught even the uninformed. It caught their attention. I mean, that's good. Welcome to the party. It's almost over, but welcome anyway. When it comes to liberty and freedom and things that threaten it, the things that threaten our freedom are as old as freedom itself. And in specifically to this country, it's been a battle from the beginning. And there's been certain periods of time where there's been a lot more enlightened public about these issues. And the more educated the public is about what threatens their freedom, the less of the threat to their freedom. But today we have a society that doesn't even think about these things, by and large, until something happens, like the COVID lockdowns, for instance. That served as a big wake-up call for a lot of people. Events less all-encompassing, like let's take, for instance, Elon Musk having his eldest son neutered and chemically altered, and he himself made it say, my son is dead. And he meant that literally and metaphorically at the same time, because his eldest son can't reproduce. And it struck Elon in a very profound way, which caused him to start paying attention to geopolitics, which is not something that he was into. Not even a little bit. I mean, he would go along with anything the Democrats said, because he wasn't paying attention to that stuff. When he started paying attention, he felt compelled to do something. And he made a profound change, and one of the most significant things in the fight for liberty and freedom was he bought a huge social platform and Twitter and turned it into X, and that's one of the least censored social media platforms, although they're still plagued with much censorship. They had a glitch last week which blew out most of the live streaming. My account still hasn't recovered. I'm assuming it has to do with that because I'm not allowed to stream live to X right now. Even though I've paid my fee, it says that my check mark's gone and I'm not allowed to broadcast to X. But that's a sidebar. The main point is when Elon became educated on current affairs, geopolitics, he felt compelled to do something. And I've said many times on this broadcast, that is the main reason most people don't want to pay attention. Because anybody with any kind of intellect whatsoever, if they become aware and they become interested in such things, they will feel compelled to do something about it. And after all, with jobs and lives and wives and family and things to do, all of our activities, who has time to pay attention to try to untwist the ball of confusion and lies and subversion and psychological operations and all kind of other operations which have been launched against the people of not only this country but of the world itself. Because once you start going into all of that, it consumes a lot of time. Who's got the time? And once you find out certain things, who wants to disrupt their lives by trying to positively change the direction we're going in? Almost no one. Because we want basically to be left alone. We don't want to be screwed with by our government and by our financial institutions, by the people that would like to digitally enslave us. We don't want to be screwed with. We just want to be left alone. So many people, most people, choose the path of ignoring what's going on around them, and the rest, there's a tiny little group that doesn't ignore it and tries to do something about it. Then there's a massive group of people who are vaguely aware of it but choose to ignore it because they know if they had paid attention to it, they'd feel compelled to do something about it. And then there's a smaller group that are just oblivious. And they aren't capable of understanding it on the level to put together the fact that something needs to be done. We get all kinds of conflicting reports about how large these groups are. It won't be long until we get to sift through that bullshit and we figure out how many people are really involved or not. One of those litmus tests coming up shortly in 77 days or whatever it is are the midterm elections. If this country does not show up en masse and put Republicans in office, up and down the ballot from dog catcher to U.S. Senator and everything in between, we're in big trouble. And not because the Republicans are wonderful and they're our saviors. It's because the Republicans, by and large, are not criminal in their operations to the degree that the Democrats are. And the Democrats, many of them are so blinded by their own maleducation that they don't even know they're criminals. And it's probably beyond repair, to be honest. No matter how many of us wake up, no matter how many of us get involved, it's going to take more than even the mighty effort of many millions and millions of human beings to completely fix this this problem we find ourselves in. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing something. The analogy would be 5 people in black suits with hoods over their heads show up with automatic weapons at your front door, and they bust into your house, start spraying bullets around, putting you and your family in mortal danger. And all you have is a handgun, and you have to, go dig it out of your safe because they convinced you that you must keep your firearms in a safe. Yeah, to give them the advantage. But anyway, you have to go find your firearm and try to fight these guys off. And here's the thing. You're probably not going to win. But are you just going to give up without a fight? And let them kill you and rape your wife and slaughter your children? Say, well, and you say to yourself, well, what can I do? There's 5 of them and 1 of me, and all I have is a handgun. What's the use? Or you're going to find that handgun and try and take as many of those evil bastards out as you can. And with God's help, maybe take them all out before they kill your family. I mean, this is a very good analogy of what we face in this country. And many of the people take the idea, oh, what's the use? What can I do? I just let them, enslave or slaughter me. I don't think that's the answer, in my opinion. So this is why things like, what do we do beyond Trump? Hell, what do we do while Trump's gone 90 degrees on us? On many things. But he's still miles above anything the other side has to offer, or the other side even within the Republican Party has to offer. So we continue to try to get Mr. Trump to course correct and get back to the things that he promised us when we elected him. He's our horse. Just because the horse is off the trail, what do? You say, "Aw, shucks." You jump off the horse and stay out in the middle of the desert with no transportation and no water and say, "Oh well, we tried." Or do you try to get that horse to start behaving? Another not very good analogy for you. But I think the answer to those rhetorical questions are obvious. It is incumbent upon each and every one of us to try and affect a small change or a large change, whatever capacity. If you're Elon Musk and have $1 trillion, you try to make a big change or have a big effect. If you're an old radio host sitting around in his home studio doing a podcast. You make what effect you have available to you. And all of us should be doing something. And the very least of which is prevent the Democrats from getting power at every level. And the only way to do that is to show up the midterms and vote Republican down the ticket. This third party nonsense, this staying home nonsense, this voting Democrat to punish Republican nonsense, that's all going to lead to our own demise. This is ridiculous. It is short-sighted. It is ignorant. Because the old school leadership of the Republican Party does not want to be in the majority to begin with. So how are you going to punish them by giving them what they want anyway, is to be the minority party that can squawk and complain about the other side with plausible deniability of the fact that they're not in power, so they really can't do anything about it. This is, all my life, the position the Republicans have desired more than anything. They were perfectly happy back in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan as president. The Republicans had control of the Senate, so they could kind of control the Democrats who were in control of the House. That's the way they like it. And back then, Democrats, by and large, were not insane. There were this element of DSA resident in the Democrat Party, but they used to be covert. And that is the key difference. Well, there's two really major differences between that era and this era. The Democrats that were insane and were traitors and hated this country did so covertly. And they weren't in control of the entire Democrat Party. Now, in the modern era, they're openly in total opposition to anything this country's ever stood for. And they're vocal about it, and they have intimidated the former leadership of the Democrats into submission. So they are now in control of that party. So these are the reasons, along with many other reasons, that we must have Republicans. Because since the Tea Party days, there's been a beachhead made by true patriots of this country to try and take over the Republican Party. Much as the DSA has control of the Democrats, the patriots are trying to get control of the Republicans. And we've made a beachhead. There are good Republicans. It's the only vehicle we have in order to try and restore this republic. And there is no time for third-party nonsense. There's certainly no time for sitting on your ass at home and not voting. And of the idiots that want to vote for Democrats to punish Republicans, give me a break. The Nick Fuentes idea of how to affect change in this country, yeah, you'll affect change all right. We won't have a frickin' country anymore with that kind of stupidity. Now, that is to not call Nick Fuentes stupid, but he is misguided as to what to do about the problems we find ourselves facing. So what lies ahead for us beyond Trump? Wow. Very good question indeed. Some people have put their hopes in, but the Vice President, J.D. Vance. And although there are as many desirable qualities that it seems that our Vice President has, I'm not sure he has what it takes to pick up what used to be the Trump's agenda, which used to be more or less what the American people wanted. God knows what Trump's up to now. I mean, there has been many. I have this hat bothers me. Sorry. There has been many diverging actions being taken by the president that led him astray from what he told us he was going to do, either by implication or by direct promise. So there's a lot of people that have abandoned Mr. Trump in terms of support. Again, very unwise. And then there are those that say Trump is doing no wrong, he's doing everything right, he's got the master plan. And I think that's incredibly foolish as well. But to throw him under the bus is even bigger folly. Because all you're doing is throwing yourself under the bus. Trump is still capable of making many, many positive changes to get this country in the direction we need it to go. He's his own worst enemy a lot of times. His mouth is ready, fire, aim. And he might even get to the aim part with a lot of his unfiltered comments, which are most of his comments are completely unfiltered, without any thought on the level, third, fourth, fifth level of what will be done with his comments against him and against Republicans. He doesn't think like that. And if you're in politics, you have to be very judicious on what it is that you say. Because if it can be taken out of context and used against you, it absolutely will be. And some of the things Trump has said are so single-minded and oblivious to everything I just said, that he's done great, great damage to his own base. And he's 80, and he has the Dilligaff attitude about that thing. He doesn't care, which is also foolish. we used to, when he first hit the scene and started doing that, because most of his guns, if not all of his guns, were pointed in the correct direction. So when he said something irreverent, it was refreshing and entertaining, and it drove the left crazy. Well, the left learned to adapt to that and take his own words and use them against him. Whether it's true or not doesn't matter. You know, truth is not the key thing that matters in politics. It's what can we use that statement for? And Trump himself, with his Dillegaff attitude, has alienated a very large percentage of his original support system. And behind the scenes, maybe he cares about that, maybe he does not. Doesn't change the fact that it happened. The only reason it matters whether he cares about it or not is whether he'll quit doing it or not. Nonetheless, Mr. Trump is not on the ballot in 76 days. Republicans are. And we have to get them in office, because the alternative is Satanism in complete control. And I don't know how to say it with any more seriousness than that. The recent reports of the multiple different mothers executing their children, if that isn't disturbing enough, thousands of white liberal women lining the streets in support of the women who executed their children. When you have that kind of thing going on in your culture, you are on the precipice of absolute collapse and demise. It's very disturbing, to say the least. So, but that doesn't mean we don't look for a 45 when we're faced with 5 men with machine guns. We still go for the 45 and try to take them out. And with God's help, in the end, righteousness will prevail. But we don't take the attitude, well, what can I do? It's time to pick a side, ladies and gentlemen. Either you're ready to defend liberty, or be a slave, or worse, be dead. That's where we're at. It's not pleasant to look at. And we got here largely. Oh, we had help getting here, don't get me wrong, because our education system been co-opted by the demons. Our news media, our government institutions, our private institutions, our big, huge global conglomerate corporations. They're all co-opted by Satanism. It's an impossible task to overcome this without God's help. But since we need God's help, is throwing up your hand and say, what can I do anyway? The right move? The whole point is this program is, no, that's not the right way. And as I stated before, the very least that should be done is get your ass to the polls and vote for Republicans. Because I'm tired of the term lesser of two evils, because it's so elementary and it's so blind to what the good people are trying to accomplish, and it's discrediting to the effort. So lesser of two evils is not the appropriate terminology, in my opinion. It's either you give up and submit yourself to the Satanists, or you try to fight the Satanists. It's more like that. And we hope it doesn't come to civil unrest and armed conflict and blood in the streets, as it has so many other times in human history. We're trying to prevent the blood, yet affect the change. Because if we don't fight it and continue winning some of the battles that we've won recently, with huge stuff happening on that front, the alternative is blood in the streets. Because not all Americans are going to go by the wayside and allow this to happen without trying to do something about it. So the goal is to do that with the tools that we have other than violence. But the founders of this country were quite clear. In the Declaration of Independence, Thomas Jefferson wrote, when a government becomes tyrannical, it becomes our duty to change that government. That means, up to and including force. That's why he's quoted as saying, the tree of liberty has to be watered from time to time with the blood of patriots and tyrants. You think he just said that to move air around the room? No. He knew what was up. He knew what was worth fighting for. Sadly, we have few among us the caliber of the men who founded this nation. Because if we did, none of this crap would have been allowed to happen to begin with. Those of us that still believe in the American system and liberty and freedom, and that it's worth fighting for, we stand on the shoulders of great men. These are men that didn't even consider themselves great. They just consider themselves normal. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Isn't that the definition of normal? Yet here we are in a nation of 350 million idiots who want to worry about the babblings of Candace Owens or Nick Fuentes or Sean Hannity or Mark Levin and get caught up in those rabbit holes that go nowhere, rather than looking at what's really going on and what the problem is. We have criminals and tyrants in control of us. The American system and the American system of government is predicated upon the idea that the government works for us to do the things that the individual states and communities can't do for themselves. Provide for the defense of the nation. To protect individual rights against other individuals and governments. Your state, your county, your city government, they're not allowed to act outside the Constitution. They do it all the time. They're not allowed to. Our Constitution codifies our God-given rights, and your mayor doesn't have the right to violate the Constitution just because it's not a federal government. So we are so far off the beam. It's not looking good. Let's just put it that way. But so you're flying down the highway at 95 miles an hour on a Harley Davidson, and up ahead there's a big pileup of cars running into each other. Do you throw up your hand and say, oh well, this is it, I'm not even going to try to prevent an accident, I'm not even going to try to not crash into it, I'm not even going to step on the brake or downshift or slide or do anything to avoid the crash? No, what can I do? No. You do all of those things and try to avoid it. Trouble is, if you can't see it because you're too busy worried about, the NFL preseason games, then you're not going to be very effective when that sort of bread and circus is what takes precedent over what's in your face, actually threatening your liberty, your freedom, and your very life. And I'm not an anti-sports guy. I like certain sports, particularly American original, like football, like baseball. I don't have a lot of time for that stuff, but I'm not anti it, but it is entertainment after all. And there are things in life more important than entertainment. And sports is another. It's like a part of the fabric of our culture that ties people together, gives people things to have in common with each other and talk about. So it's not a totally bad thing. Not to mention, it's there to train our young people to be warriors. Competition is healthy. Striving for excellence in athletics is healthy. It's healthy for the nation. It's healthy for your individual body. And there's a lot of positive things about all that stuff. But to have that the number one thing in your life, excluding all else, and not worried about anything else, is way out of balance. That's my overall point with that. If you want the liberty to raise your children as athletic people and continue these activities, maybe you ought to be somewhat aware of what protects your ability to do that. A viable economy, reasonable liberty and freedom in your community. So it's sad because people don't see what's happening around them as an existential threat. But it is. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there. Just because you ignore it doesn't mean it's not there. We have thousands of women lined up along the street to greet the police paddy wagon that's transporting a woman who murdered her 3 children, waving at her in support. When you have a society that's that sick, if you don't think your liberty is at risk, you're sadly mistaken. That is the last degree of decadence before complete collapse of any society in history. The celebration of child murder and its various different forms of evil that have to do with not protecting our little ones. It's horrifying. What can I do about it? You can not support it by speaking out against it, by reinforcing your natural human condition called holding human life as sacred, and realize that threats to that are to be shunned, are to be criticized, or to be the perpetrators are to be incarcerated, not stand on the street corner and support them. That's the opposite. So, in other words, have humanity and common decency. That's what you can do about it. Many of you probably aren't even aware of what I'm talking about. And some of this transfers to the geopolitical as well. Last week, Turkey and Syria and Pakistan had a conference discussing the terms of the new nuclear umbrella in the Middle East. And what did our best friends in Israel do? They bombed that conference. Because they don't want Turkey and Syria and Pakistan to have an alliance. That goes against their plans. So when you have friends like that, who needs enemies? I mean, the government of Israel has been trying to sabotage every kind of peace deal because they don't want peace. They want chaos, destruction, and weakened neighbors that they may take some of their territory. This is their stated plan. Again, with friends like that, who needs enemies? So our president is up against it in the Middle East, let me tell you what. But this latest iteration of trying to exit the situation in the Middle East by cutting off the sources of money to Iran are eventually going to be the effective strategy. Now, it's not what Israel wants. They want regime change. So they're going to try and sabotage any efforts of the United States to do it without a full-blown war. And so that's a dilemma, because they have the nuclear threat to hold over the head of our president, saying that, well, if you won't help us, then we're just going to nuke them. Well, we all know that's not a good answer. So, if there's a way out, it's economic strangulation of Iran, which the president has put into action, and also publicly denouncing Israel's actions in the West Bank, in Lebanon. Even Mike Huckabee has come out and said it's the greatest act of terrorism we've ever seen, what they're doing to the people in the West Bank. Coming from a man who a couple months ago said, let Israel take over the whole Middle East. Came out of the mouth of the same guy, Mike Huckabee. So, there's definitely been a change in the strategy of our government and what to do in the Middle East, and I hope it works. You know, the Promethean action people say that Trump's a genius, Vance is a genius, Bessent's a genius, Rubio's a genius, and they're all doing steps to reinstall the American system over the British imperial system. I hope they're right. I don't know. It seems a little bit of a seems a little Pollyanna to me, but in principle I think these people are right. Trump is trying to encourage nationalism, not just in America, but in everybody else's nation, where they try to do the best they can for their nation, and we try to do the best we can for our nation, and stop the stranglehold of the debt slavery system that is based in the City of London. And I'm for that. And I think that Promethean Action is on to something there. Now, those of you who don't know, Promethean Action is the group that split off from the LaRouche crowd, Lyndon LaRouche, after he passed on. His wife, who was completely insane, took the LaRouches in a direction that was contrary to what the man had been fighting for, and they've been fighting to look for a solution, the third way, if you will. Now, he's been hit with the propaganda over the years. He's a communist, he's a socialist, he's a leftist, and all this stuff. And to a certain degree, that may have been deserved because of some of his... They were searching for the answer, and they didn't actually find it. You know, until the search project was over with, maybe somewhere in the late 70s, and then they settled on what they call the American system, which is also what Alexander Hamilton called it, which is also what Abraham Lincoln called it, what is actually what William McKinley called it, the American system. What is the American system? It's free enterprise, not free trade or free market. Because free market and free trade, what that means is sell everything to everybody. Buy everybody around the world's goods with no tariffs. That's basically what free trade means. And that has failed miserably to serve the interests of the American people. And Donald Trump came along and says, we're going to do tariffs. Well, boy, was he met with some resistance there on many, many fronts. And the tariff things were designed to stop other countries from taking advantage of our economic largesse and put the focus back on being an independent nation that produces their own services and goods and is independent and could get along with no trade if we had to. And encourage all other countries to do the same thing, but yet work together on certain projects. That's exactly the opposite of what the globalists want, isn't it? And the globalist / imperial, British imperial system, it's all the same thing. So those folks think that Trump's a genius and he's doing exactly the right things at the right time and all that. And I'm not sure that I'm on that bandwagon. But I do agree that the economic starvation of Iran is the way out of the quagmire in the Middle East. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bid you a fond adieu until we get together next time around on Article 5 Live, heard here on these platforms every Sunday night, 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is also right now Pacific Daylight Time. Sunday, 8 p.m. On Facebook and Rumble, Article 5 Live. And here's hoping your family is blessed. And we really need our Savior, our Lord, our King, Christ Jesus, more now than ever. I wish you all well. I wish I had better news. I wish I had better perspective. More optimistic perspective. But liberty or death, I think that's what we have to keep in mind here. So with that happy note, I will see all of you next time. Next week, God willing. On the next Article 5 Live. Good night and God bless.